So due to the celebration for 100 chapters of Ragnarok, the authors wanted to give us a special treat, so they gave us a second chapter this month. We have a double chapter, so chapter 101 is already out. We're covering it here. First things first though, make sure you subscribe, like the video so you never miss an upload. Stay up to date with all the Ragnarok news and content. But let's dive right in. Picking up right where we left off, so obviously we saw the scattershot take down the majority of Loki's copies. We see the aftermath, the bodies in the snow. And we get this narration that says the battlefield is shrouded in snow and silence. The crowd is in complete shock as they usually are, and Heimdall is barely able to even get words out. He says one shot. The countless copies of the three gods were nearly all annihilated in a single blow. The audience just witnessed a miracle. A single bullet fired from Simo's beloved Mosin-Nagant rifle, the initial velocity of 810 meters per second. It exceeded the speed of sound more than twice. The single bullet he shot split into countless pieces. It became a scatter shot and made the god's blood spurt into bloody flowers to blossom. Now we see that Loki is actually in the forest now, so we left the village. He's now trying to lay chase to Simo himself. Now he could just obviously make infinite copies. We know this, so him losing the copies really didn't matter. He can make the same amount again, so he could do that, but it looks like he's going with a different strategy at this point, because obviously he does not know what it took for Simo to unleash this shot, which we'll find out later. Loki thinks to himself, judging from the direction of the light and the sound of the gunshot and taking into account the scope of damage, he's most likely hiding around there, and he actually accurately pinpoints the location Simo was perched. But at this point, Simo's long gone. Obviously, a very smart sniper, he moved from his position. Heimdall talks about it over the loudspeaker and says, Simo has already vanished from his hiding spot. Even with this many cameras, we can't even keep up with him. The falling snow is erasing all his traces. So it's actually erasing his tracks. So I was confused a little bit if we could see tracks last chapter. I thought we couldn't, but then there was like a little bit of a weird panel, but it looks like it's confirmed that he's not leaving any tracks behind, which I like, because the snow is of course covering it up. Where did he disappear to? Says Heimdall. The crowd is basically saying that this is just amazing. The strongest sniper in the history of humanity. That's the power of a sniper. With this, the number of enemies is irrelevant. It'll be a piece of cake. Way to go, Simo. Humanity is emboldened, man. We then cut to Jack the Ripper, and I really love this insight from him. He says, marvelous. Locke says, mass-produced fakes are all like that, aren't they? And Jack replies, absolutely. There's no comparison between those gods and the original, so they don't nearly have the same power level as the original. That should have been obvious. Nevertheless, even so, I'm a little concerned, says Jack. What are you talking about, says Locke. That was just one bullet that fragmented into a buckshot. That attack was terrifying, astonishing, and I never imagined something like that. So don't forget, yeah, Jack was completely flabbergasted, bro, when he saw this shot. Like, he's usually never that animated, but he was shocked, Zeus was shocked, Buddha was shocked. Locke says, is that so? By the way, what is the meaning of buckshot? Little Locke hates words she doesn't understand, don't you know? And Jack explains that a regular bullet is essentially a point. The attack is focused on a single point with high piercing power and a low range. In contrast, a buckshot is an area attack, scattering multiple small projectiles at once. It damages a wide area, but it lacks piercing power, and the range is short, therefore it's not good for sniping. However, none of those drawbacks that I just mentioned were apparent in the attack from a moment ago. The effective range, penetrating capability, and the accuracy of the shot are not normal for a buckshot. There's likely some kind of special power behind this. I wonder what kind of emotion is contained within that bullet. They always showed Jack's eye flickering. He's obviously trying to track people's emotions. They need to get Jack a bigger damn TV in this room, bro. It's crazy. At that point, Locke says special power. We then cut to Ares, Hermes, and Zeus, where Ares is saying, even if they are fakes, witnessing my godly pal Hercules being killed again is such a terrible feeling. And to make it worse, by a mere gun. There's no doubts that firearms produced by human civilization shouldn't be able to harm a god's body. But would the same apply to copies created by a divine power? Damn it, Hermes, what are your thoughts? And he shakes Hermes. Hermes says, well, I don't know either. Is it even possible to accomplish such a thing with Volund or share destiny? So Hermes doesn't know. And Zeus says, or perhaps you've prepared some other trick, my dear young Brunhilde. Cool panel of Zeus as he looks over across the arena to Hilda. It's reminiscent of like when he first was looking at her when the rosters were revealed and Volund was first introduced to us. But Hilda doesn't have like a sinister smile on her face, and she's not looking back at Zeus, so it doesn't really seem like she planned this out. We then see somebody approaching Hilda and entering her room. Hilda looks back and says, Goal? But it's not Goal, it's Buddha. Buddha says, I'm not Goal, big sis. Still, is everything alright with Goal? Hilda says, Lord Buddha, no, it's nothing. Is there something you need? And Buddha says, I was watching the match and something caught my attention. That sniper boy. He's a terrifying fellow, wouldn't you agree? That shared destiny thing I taught you is a technique that allows a human's body and a Valkyrie's weapon, forged through Volund, to be more effective against the gods. So I have a whole video explaining what Volund is, but basically, yeah, they just share a soul. They effectively kind of make the humans like a demigod, so to speak. Buddha continues and says, so even if a Valkyrie becomes a gun through Volund, or even if they share their souls with a human through shared destiny, what would really work against the god is only the human's body or the gun itself. Unless you prepared special bullets for him, what he just fired is just normal bullets, or so it should be. So this is an interesting point, because people are like, well, how the hell would, a gun work, given that like the Volund should simply be the gun. Like the bullets shouldn't be able to pierce the gods, right? So this is a cool point. Buddha continues and says, isn't that right? What exactly are those bullets, Brun? And Hilda says, I have nothing to do with this. That's the price he pays. Buddha says, the price? And Hilda says, among all of humanity, no, even if we were to include every single god, I believe that Simo is the only one who can fire those bullets. What happened at that time, what he put in that bullet was, and it shows us an image of his kidney. You see, Simo sacrifices his organs to amplify the power of his shots. It's actually insane. We see that it's directly correlated, and literally the power of his kidney like went into the bullet. This technique is called the Reaper's Contract, which is a really cool name. And we actually see his Valkyrie behind him. But again, Hilda said she had nothing to do with this. And with Buddha's comments, we can assume that this is not the Valkyrie's ability. This is simply just Simo's innate ability that he has come to possess. She's reinforcing him, but this isn't her special power. Hilda then says, that's right. He created that incredibly powerful bullet by using one of his organs as the price. Buddha can't believe this. He says, an organ for a bullet? Nope, 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 nope. Isn't that way too painful? I mean, if the bullet is part of his body, it makes sense it works against gods. But why is he fighting like that? Such a thing goes so far beyond simply having a clear mind. I respect that guy. What kind of life did he live to become like that, I wonder? So I'm trying to make sense of this in my head. And I guess the way that this works is because the Volund and shared destiny is reinforcing his body, right? Him using part of his body as bullets means that it should still be a high-powered, godly weapon. Because he's literally shooting his body effectively as the bullet. So that's why it makes sense. So I actually like this. It wraps things up nicely, especially when you note the fact that the Valkyrie is also taking damage. So she's taking damage because he sacrificed his own body, which she is basically merged with at this point. She has amplified his body. He's shooting part of his body out or sacrificing part of his body for the shot. She is taking damage in turn. So it highlights how much conviction both of them have in this moment, because not only is he sacrificing himself, he's sacrificing his Valkyrie's life as well. So she trusts in him fully. And Buddha respecting him, it's pretty high praise. Hilda gives her thoughts and says Simo became a war hero by killing innumerable enemies. However, even though he was fighting to protect his fatherland, the act of shooting people for him was an unbearable pain. He does not like killing. Somebody commented, some people ain't killers by choice. Shit was cold. Therefore, this power of his was created. The unbearable pain he's feeling right now, destroying both his body and spirit, is atonement. Therefore, for Simo, that pain is his salvation. Now, throughout all this, we see Simo running through the forest. Obviously, we see the blood trickling, through his mask from the initial shot. But then we see he's reloading and loading up for a second shot, getting into position. And we see that this time, he's loading up his liver. He bleeds again. More blood is coming out of the mask. And then he gets up into position to fire this shot. So in the leaks, we didn't know specifically all the details of this, but this makes it crystal clear. Like, this man can go down the line of all his most prized organs, and it might lead to him having to shoot his heart to finish Loki. And if that's the case, people are going to be running wild with the draw theory, because, if he shoots his heart out, he should be dead. Maybe he can use his brain. He could probably use anything, but this is crazy. But it really amps the stakes, because every single bullet matters and costs a serious price. Regardless, after this fight, let's say Simo does win, he's going to be in a terrible state, bro. This is going to be crazy. Going to be a wild fight. Can't wait to see how this plays out. That is the end of the chapter. As the narration says, the single shot destroys him. Can't wait to cover next month's chapter. Make sure you guys give me your theories in the comments below. We got 2 chapters. If you missed the first one, go check out all that content that's up on the channel. We'll definitely be covering the Apocalypse of the Gods chapter next in terms of Record of Ragnarok, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe, like the channel, and I'll see you guys then. Peace.